By way of introduction, I would like to start talking why do we have a severe whitefly pressure here in Georgia? So the main fact is that our vegetable crops are overlapped with our row crop crops, particularly cotton. So basically our whitefly pressure is occur during the fall season, as you all know. And this is when we have a cotton defoliation. So the whiteflies coming from Florida to Georgia as we get a warmer condition here, they come to the row crops. But then as cotton is being defoliated, the whiteflies migrate from cotton to vegetable. And that's when we have our heavy whitefly pressure and when we need to keep our spray programs on top of the day so we are sure that we are controlling our whitefly or properly managing our populations. Another frequent question that we have is when whitefly comes. So whiteflies will migrate from Florida here when we have our warmer temperatures and a reduction on our rainfall events. As you know, rainfall events tend to knock down the whitefly population a little bit, while warmer temperatures tend to increase the number of whiteflies we have in the field. So in this graph where we have the whitefly adults per trap according to month of the year, we are showing when the whitefly peaks here in Georgia. So although there are different magnitude from 2018 represented by the green line compared to 2019 represented in the blue line, the peak is always mid of September when we have most of our cotton being defoliated and our cold crops, cucurbits, tomatoes, and even snap bean being planted. And that's when we have our problem. So those are the main factors: temperature, rainfall events, but also the crops being planted affected our whitefly. And that's when we have our window from August to November. So the question here would be when to plant vegetable crops. So we start to do here at UGA a yellow squash and zucchini case of study for planting dates. Our goal was to evaluate what would be the best planting dates for cucurbits, or in this case, yellow squash and zucchini, during the whitefly season. So we tested 5 different planting dates: August 15, August 30, September 16, September 30, and October 16. As you can see in this graph, again with the whitefly adults per trap and date of the year, we have our planting dates in red, blue, green, orange, and yellow. And our line represents the whitefly population for 2020. As you can see, early planting dates have a heavy whitefly population, but it reduces over time. So a delay in planting date, it can be considered our best option. However, we need to also to account with weather temperature. If you record from last year when we presented 2019 for this study of case, the early planting dates got no yield at all. And this was because our whitefly population on early August until mid-August is too heavy, and we have a lot of crumple virus and silver leaf problems for yellow squash and zucchini. So this year it was not different, and that's what we want to talk for in this presentation. So in the next slide, you're going to see how yield is being affected. So the effect of planting date on yield is shown in this table, where we have the planting dates: August 15, August 30, September 16, September 30, and October 16 for zucchini and yellow squash. Here we have the marketable yield and the unmarketable yield for both crops in bucks per acre. As you can see, our yields were higher on planting dates at mid of September for zucchini, but there was no difference between yields for yellow squash. So last year, our highest yield was September 16 and September 30, while this year, August 30 and September 16 were our highest yield. So it starts to show us that our best window of planting date would be between end of August and mid-September. And as I just mentioned, it's matching with our previous data. So for 2 consecutive years, we are seeing that planting in that window of end of August and early September could allow our growers to produce or to yield better squash, zucchini and yellow squash. However, it's also consistent that zucchini can yield more during the whitefly season when compared to yellow squash. And that's what we're gonna be talking right now in the next slide. So the question why zucchini is yielding more than yellow squash, it is because zucchini apparently have less susceptibility to the crumple virus when compared to yellow squash. Although both crops presented symptoms in 2019 and now in 2020, in this graph here, where we have a virus scale that we rate our plants from 0 to 5 in days after plant, we see that the magnitude for the yellow squash compared to zucchini is higher under the yellow squash, regardless of planting date. But also we see that early planting dates tend to have a higher score or higher virus scale compared to late planting date. So if you manage a planting date with the virus appearance in our crop, that would be the best planting window, and that's what we try to do. So our yields were better, the best in August 16, between August 30 and September 16, and it just proved here that that window also allow a better, a lower incidence or a lower virus scale. So that could still be consistent that we have a better planting date between end of August, early September. Therefore, to answer the question when to plant, and although I have already emphasized end of August, early September, in this graph, where we have the whitefly population again in days of year, we can see why these dates are optimal. Because there is a strong reduction of whitefly population. And similar, it was measured last year in 2019. So over 2 consecutive years, we found that planting in this window would allow us to have a higher yield because we have a reduction in the whitefly population. Consequently, we have a reduction in the virus scale appearance on the field. So that would be our first recommendation on managing planting date on cucurbits, in particular yellow squash and zucchini, during the whitefly population, end of August, early September. Still, we have to identify what are the other management practices that we can be doing during the whitefly season to minimize the impact of this insect and the virus transmitted by this insect. So one of our trials is a row cover as an alternative management. We know that spraying programs during the whitefly are too severe. Growers may apply insecticides every other day. It's increasing dramatically the cost of production. So in a tentative to minimize that cost of production, we installed some trials using row covers as the one seen in this picture here. So we could identify if this can be a practical management practice during the whitefly season for zucchini production. And our results were very satisfactory because we could reduce the spraying program. Actually, we had no spraying program under the cover treatment, and also no appearance of virus, which indicate that the insect was not attacking our plants. And that was the key point for this trial. In this graph, we have the scale of virus, again, from 0 to 5 in days of the year. The dot line represents the no cover, while the continuous line represents the row cover. So as you can see, as we planted in September 16, our virus scale increased over time. It peaked from September 30 to October 7, October 8, when it's the flowering, a little bit before flowering, but in the no cover treatment. But there was no virus during the under the row cover treatment. Once we remove the cover, viruses start to appear. However, plants were already large enough to sustain yield, to sustain themselves, to start flowering, and that's when we remove it. Our cover was removed at the flowering period, so it was not affecting our leaves anymore. And that's the main goal of this practice, is to save plants in the early stage of crop development. And this consequently will affect our yield later in the season after flowering. And here is the impact that the row cover have in yield and also in the biomass, in the plant growth, biomass accumulation that I was just talking about. So as you can see, row covers have a much higher yield than the no cover at all. As you can see, the magnitude of those yield is, while the row cover were around a little bit more than 700 bucks per acre, the no cover were lower, were with about 500 bucks per acre, which is very considerable. And the reason why this yield was higher, other than the virus, it's shown in this next graph here, where we have biomass accumulation over time. As you can see, the row cover have a higher and fast biomass accumulation when compared to the no cover. And at the time of fruiting, they have reached the biggest biomass accumulation, their full size. So plants with a higher full size were allowed to yield more than plants that did not have the maximum full size. And this is shown by the row cover versus the no cover here in this graph. So that are some of the benefits of we having the row cover. We can minimize the impact of virus, minimize the impact of insect. Consequently, we're gonna have a higher, a bigger plant size that will impact yield and provide a higher yield. So row cover proved to be a feasible practice, saving with spraying programs and allowing a higher yield. This trial was also conducted in a collaborator grower, and we had the same results. Dr. Duda will be talking a little bit more about that trial in a grower's field, and we'll be showing the benefits of this row cover and also how we can manage the row cover in the field. Another topic that I would like to go here, and I will try to be brief, is the cultivar selection. So in the past 3 years, we have been doing variety trials for yellow squash and zucchini during the whitefly season. We want to identify what is the best varieties or what is the best cultivar to recommend for growers. And I don't want to go in depth with numbers. I don't want to go in depth what's happened each year, but I would like to tell you that over our 3 years of evaluation, and after we doing a deep statistical analysis on that, for yellow squash, Grand Prize, Gold Prize, and Lioness were our 3 top varieties. While for zucchini, the SV0914, Paycheck, and Spineless Beauty were our top varieties. So just keep in mind, for the whitefly season, those are some of the varieties that could be selected for an optimum yield. However, I would like also to emphasize that there was no yellow squash and no zucchini with virus resistance at all. We had symptoms in all our varieties. Therefore, in 2020, we conducted a trial with alternative cucurbits, and most of those cucurbits were kabocha. This could be an option for growers to looking for alternative crops, but also for our breeder programs to identify what is the best gene for identify resistance to the crumple virus. Our crops, our varieties evaluated were the variety Amber Max, Chacha, Geisha, Delica, the Gold Buddha Ball, Shock Indian Grain, Sunshine, Speckle Pump, Winter Sweet, and Sweet Mama. And all of those were compared with the gold price. And that's what I want to tell you guys. How was it? Were they showing virus symptoms? The answer is no. All our alternative cultivars, our kabocha cultivars, perform better than the yellow squash. As you can see in these photos, I just selected one of the varieties, and I'm showing there was no symptoms at all. A little bit of whitefly in the leaves, but when compared to the yellow squash, where we had a lot of crumple and a lot of whiteflies, those alternative crops showed to be optimum during the whitefly season. The question is, will the growers find market for that? And that's something that we are still approaching to do a better recommendation with you. We wanted to establish guidelines. We want to establish cultural practice and see if there is a market for you guys, for you growers, that you can be approaching. However, keep in mind, those are alternative crops that are in the market that we can be using during the whitefly season. And with that, I would like to end my talk. I don't want to more the longest, but I just would like to say, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us, contact your county agent. We can work together as a team to try to solve your problem during the whitefly season. And I just try to show you, to present you some alternative practice, some cultivar selections, or some even alternative crops that can be used during the whitefly season. But there are more that we would like to share, but I don't want to go longer. So if you have any questions, please feel free to contact your extension office, your extension agent, and we can work together to have a better season in 2021. Thank you.